we are actually going to be talking about 2024 market recap, including... Welcome back to my channel. I am Morgan, the human behind Silly Dilly Creations, where I like to kind of talk about all things market related, crocheting life, balancing a small business with a real life 9-to-5. So if you are new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button so that you never miss one of my videos that drop about once a week. I am joined here by my lovely flowers because I don't have one of those nice aesthetic backgrounds that I often see people on the internet have, but I wanted to make sure that all of my creations were obviously in the shot as well. So if you like any of these flowers, comment down below what's your favorite color, because today we are actually going to be talking about 2024 market recap, including which of these flowers sold the best, as well as which of all my other plushies sold. So we're going to be diving right into that and kind of recapping all of 2024, and then also taking some key takeaways from this last year into the next year. I'm also wearing my lovely Taylor Swift sweatshirt that I actually rarely put on because this is such a valued piece of clothing for me, but I wanted to wear something special, so you're welcome that you get to actually see this. Before we recap on 2024 best-selling plushies, key takeaways, all of that, I wanted to kind of just give an overview so that if you are new here, you kind of don't miss anything along the way. So 2024 was the first year that I actually started selling my products mostly at markets and then a little bit of custom orders on the side. But I went into 2024 wanting to just get into markets and kind of get my feet wet and see what the market world was really like. And so at the end of 2023, which is right about like 9 months into me really starting to learn how to crochet, because I started early in 2023, I knew that by the end of that year, I wanted to kind of go into 2024 and start to sell some of my products. But I really didn't start going to markets. Well, not really. I actually didn't start going to markets until October of this past year. So I spent the first 3 quarters of the year kind of like doing other things and then starting to prepping for the markets and then really getting into them in the last quarter of last year, which was October to December. So we did a total of 4 markets, 2 in October, 2 in December. Both were back-to-back weekends, which I'll talk about a little bit later, but definitely wouldn't recommend when you're first starting out, which kind of gets into a little bit of just how I planned for these markets. Like I said, I did most of my prep in the front half of the year so that leading up to these markets, I wasn't like scrambling, since I really do work a 9-to-5 job. I have a real life responsibilities outside of just being able to crochet, and I knew when push comes to shove, I'm not going to be able to always make all of these things that I want to for my market. So, which leads right into the top selling items of my shop. So I sell a lot of different items. I'll kind of put a picture here. I have succulents, I have seasonal plushies, and then I have a lot of flowers, like you'll see here. A lot of different colors, a lot of different varieties, about like 10 different varieties. So we're just gonna break down which items sold the best by pure number and kind of get into all of that. So if you wanna make a guess on what is the top selling plushie item flower of 2024, now is the time to do so. Leave it in the comments below. I love to see what your guesses are. Items, flowers, all of that. Starting with number 7, this item is the brain cactus. This actually tied with the sand dollar cactus, which I'll kind of put a picture here. 3 of these items were sold over the 4 markets that I had, and I think it was of only like 3 available. So I really only had a chance to make a few. All 3 of the brain and all 3 of the sand dollar ones sold at all the markets. These were actually like the first 2 succulents to always go, which was really cool to see. I think they kind of were unique, and a lot of people like to kind of like make comments about like, oh, the brain like literally looks like a brain, and the sand dollar were the first 2, was always the first, second, or first succulent to go. So recapping this and kind of looking into the metrics and numbers, it was no surprise that these were in the top like 7 best selling items of 2024. And number 6 is the daisy. This is one of my cheaper flowers. So the daisy and the lavender each go for about $8, which is why I think it was such high selling. When I was actually prepping my markets, I made about 20 of these because I was like, okay, daisies, sunflowers, those are probably the most common flowers. So I wasn't too shocked that these ended up being high selling, but when I was at the markets, I felt like these didn't really sell. So I guess maybe I was a little bit surprised, but this was number 6 with a total of 4 sold at all 4 markets. Stick this guy. Oh. Right in through there. How cute. Going into number 5, this actually tied with the daisy as far as how many of these sold, with a total of 4 sold. This was an item that in 2023, when I first started crocheting, I started making a bunch of these for all my friends and family. They loved them. So going into the markets, I was like, these are it. These are going to sell. These are going to be everybody's favorite item. And while it did still score like in the top 10, it actually undersold by a lot of what I was anticipating, and that is the pumpkin pie. After my first market, I had prepped about 8 of these guys thinking like, oh my gosh, so many people are gonna love them. They're gonna be gone after the first market. And I didn't sell a single one. And so then I actually started to make these into some keychains, and those sold a little bit better, but still not a crazy amount. I thought these would sell a lot more, but I was still happy, of course, that 4 of these sold over the markets. They are one of my cheaper items as well. I think I started pricing them. I started at the first market pricing them at 12, and then I think I dropped all my keychains down to 10. That seemed to help a little bit better. The keychains also helped a little bit more because they seemed more functional. I had a few people make comments of like, what, like, this is so cute, but like, what am I gonna do with it? Which at the time I was like, that's fair. It's kind of just like this small little decoration that you could kind of put on your desk. But I was still happy that they ended up selling by the last market of the year. We got a total of 4 sold, but it was definitely something that I was expecting a little bit more of when I was going into my market prep for the year. All right, number 4 with a total of 5 sold is my lovely roses. These I actually made in about 4 to 5 different colors. I have all the basic ones of like red, pink, white, and then I even made in brown and like a terracotta color. Those 2 did not sell. I thought that those would be a cute little like fall bouquet, but they didn't end up going. But the regular red rose and a little bit of the white ones were definitely one of the more popular flowers that people would pick up. They are a little bit bigger, I think, if you like kind of compare them to over here. They are a little bit bigger than most of my flowers. They are still on not the cheaper end. They're like my middle tier flower at $12 each. So about 5 of these sold, and I think honestly a few more sold. I'm just going off of like my square, what I tracked over there. If I actually tracked it accurately, a few more of them might have sold. I just didn't always categorize it, but super happy. These are one of the quicker flowers to make, so I love to see that these guys sold pretty well. And you know, I think roses are obviously a flower that everybody knows, so they definitely get a lot of attention. But yeah, 5 of these sold overall. All right, now is the time. Leave your guesses for the top 3, including flowers, plushies, succulents, all of that, because number 3 was by far the most surprising item that sold with the highest frequency that I anticipated. This was something that when I was making this, I kind of was just making it because I wanted to add some like variety to some of the bouquets that people could make, and I really didn't think anything of it. This is a very fast flower to make, but literally without fail, every single market people picked it up. It was one of the first flowers that people were attracted to, and overall just liked it. So that flower is the lavender, with a total of 6 of these sold. So I made these in 3 different colors: dark purple, light purple, and then like this medium purple. I'm not sure which of these purples were the highest selling. If I had to guess, it was probably this one, but definitely the most surprising. I just kind of made these because I had the pattern on a whim, and I just kind of like wanted to have some smaller flowers that people could kind of put alongside like roses or tulips or things like that if they wanted to make a full bouquet. But these actually sold like pretty well on their own. I'm pretty sure if I'm remembering correctly, all of the lavenders that sold were either by themselves or with one other flower. And that was just the most surprising. It is one of my cheaper flowers. I only charge about $10 or $8 for this one, similar to the daisy, but definitely the most shocking for what I was just anticipating going into my market season. All right, which leads us into the top 2 items. Number 2, with a total of 7 sold, is the lovely sunflower. This, not surprising at all. I actually had prepped about 20 of these because I know that sunflowers are just really popular. People love them. It's a really common thing that you see, especially when I started doing markets in the fall. And I do think it's like probably the best standalone flower. So a lot of people bought single sunflowers. A few of them maybe bought them with some lavender, but definitely not the most surprising to see that this was the highest selling sunflower of 2024. If you haven't already, leave your guesses for the top selling plushie of 2024, which is the Swinging Sprout. This, after the first market that I actually had, was no surprise. This was the most talked about item, the most picked up, and from the first market, the most like sold. And I think by the end of the season, I had sold probably close to about 8 or 9 of them. Again, I don't always track perfectly in my square. And then I had a whole other custom order on the side for an additional 10 of these around Christmas time, which if you added that, that'd be close to like 20 of these Swinging Sprouts sold throughout the whole market season, which was really exciting for me to see that like one of my items that's, again, I kind of put this in a middle tier. They cost about $18 and they take anywhere from like 45 minutes to make. So they're one of my quicker makes for a middle tier item. I was really happy to see that so many people loved them because I could just kind of crank them out, and I think that they make a really good gift for people. I've had people tell me that they like to put them on their like rear view mirror. I've had my husband, who has one at his office, put it on his door handle. And it's a little fun plushie, and honestly they are just so cute with their little freaking hands. They're one of my favorite things to make, so I'm very glad that this was like the highest selling plushie of the year, as well as the highest selling item that I had in my shop in general. So now to get into the actual sales, revenue, all of that for all of my markets. So my total revenue was about $18.70. This is again what I just have in my square. I don't exactly have it broken down between like markets and custom orders, but I believe I probably had anywhere from like 200 to 400 of custom orders. And so of the markets, I'm probably estimating anywhere from like 12 to 1400 of just like gross revenue from those events. I paid a total of $245 in booth fees across all 4 markets that I attended. And so that left us with a total profit of about $955, give or take some, since I'm not the best at tracking markets versus custom orders. Overall, it was definitely more than I was anticipating. I really had no idea going into my markets what I was going to average, especially not knowing exactly the items that were going to sell the best, and I didn't have a lot of time to prep in between markets, like more items. Pretty much all the flowers I made, I really could only make like probably 10 more after the market season kind of began. So I was really happy with just being able to actually make a decent amount of money from 4 markets, get my feet wet, and really start to get an idea of like, okay, what do I need to do to prep for these? What items sell well? What should I do kind of going into 2025, which is really what I was looking to do in 2024. And while a lot of my flowers were one of the top selling items, they were still probably on the lower end of top grossing items because my flowers overall don't cost as much as a plushie. So like the lavender and the daisy kind of cost about $10, and upwards of the highest flower that I have is a peony, that's $15. But The succulents, on the other hand, while they don't sell as many items because I can't make as many, those go anywhere between 35 to 45. So those were probably the highest grossing items that I had. They brought in the most revenue, and the flowers were kind of second. One of the more surprising things was that my seasonal items did the worst. When I was prepping for these markets, especially my Christmas market, and you know this if you watched my last video, I kind of go into all the prep that I did for the Christmas market and how those Christmas items like really flopped in my last 2 markets of the year. I prepped a lot of seasonal items. So for the fall, I prepped a lot of pumpkins, ghost dogs, I prepped a lot of pumpkin pies and s'mores, and those items did okay, but they definitely didn't outsell all of my other items. And then for Christmas, those did not sell that great. Which takes us into the next part of this video, the key takeaways in 2024 for a first-time crochet market vendor. And that top one is going to be that it's pretty hard to know the items that you're going to sell well. So one of the tips that I would have as a beginner is to probably not have as much variety as I had, to try to find a little bit of a niche, to have about 10 to 20 different items versus like I actually have probably close to 30, 40, even 50 if you really start to count all the colors as different items. I have a lot of different items, and it's really hard to restock all of those things, especially when you're going into your first market. You don't know what's gonna sell, and you're kind of just like spread really thin. I would kind of niche down a little bit harder, have just fewer variety, but more of those stocks so that you can really start to get an idea of what is going to be the best return of your time and investment when you are market prepping. My second key takeaway of this past year is to use different market vendors. I personally find all of my market vendors on Facebook, joining different local Facebook groups, trying to get into as many as I can, using Google to find like what are the bigger events, markets in the area. And in your first year, like it's probably best to just use a couple different vendors that the actual event price is not too expensive. My last 2 markets of the year were with the same vendor, and I would say the booth fee was a little bit high for the overall traffic that I had. And so looking into 2025, I know for myself, I want to spread myself to different vendors, to different types of events like farmers markets, local high school, elementary school markets, and then maybe just like local community markets that are put on by different people, rather than sticking with the same vendor every time, just so I can get a better idea of like, okay, where are the people that usually shop my items? Where are they going? What type of events do they go to? It might not, for me, always be craft fairs, which is what I looked at going into this past market season. I really was just like, oh, find me a craft fair, sign me up. I'm gonna kind of diversify into other types of events, and I would really suggest in your first year trying to spread yourself into different areas depending on how many markets you do, just so you can get an idea of where your people, who buys from you, where are you just gonna be the most successful. Which also is into like my third key takeaway. It's kind of the same of like really look into the location. Location is really going to drive the demographic that you want. For me, most of the people that buy my items are actually probably between the ages of like 20 to 35, 40. And I ended up going to a lot of markets where the average age was closer to 60 or 70. And those people usually just look at my products and go, oh my gosh, they're so pretty, they're so cute. I don't really need anything else in my house. Which, while I appreciate the compliment, not what I'm looking for when I'm trying to make a little bit of money at these events and like really use my time to my best advantage. So looking into the locations is a huge thing. Try to understand, are you somebody that maybe needs to be a little bit closer to cities? Are you needing to be more into farmers markets? Is craft fairs more where you're gonna go? That will all really depend on where you live, and then also just the type of items that you sell. Takeaway number 4 would be to not get too worried about having enough stock. Like I said at the start of this video, I prepped for these markets probably starting in May the whole way up to October. It's really easy when you're first starting out to get so hyper fixated on having the right items, having enough. all of that, as long as you're not paying too much for your booth fee, like as long as you're not paying $80, $100, $200, and you're kind of staying closer to that $40, $50 range, which a lot of markets offer, you don't have to worry too much about inventory. As long as you sell literally 1 or 2 items, you're probably going to make up in your booth fee, and you're just going to get a lot more information on what you can kind of be doing to help set yourself up for better success at future markets, rather than prepping so much on the front end and kind of doing what I did, where then you get to that season, you don't really have a lot of time to change the inventory that you have because you kind of guessed wrong at what was going to sell. So don't get too stressed out. It's honestly better to start, find local cheaper markets to get started with, just get your feet wet and kind of go from there. And my last key takeaway, which you can kind of tell because I've been saying it all video, of keep track of everything. Like I said, I kept track of most things, but I definitely didn't keep track of all of the items that I have, all of the items that I sold. It really just helps to have more data points to know, okay, what do you need to be making? What is the most successful, kind of helping you pivot along the way. If you keep track of everything, as well as like the type of materials you buy, all of the things that you need for the market, it will probably make your life easier when you go to actually pay taxes on this. So as soon as you know that you want to start selling at your markets, start keeping track of your expenses, start keeping track of your inventory. When you get to the market, keep track of what sells well, what do people gravitate towards, what's your demographic. Get all of that stuff down, because it's just going to help you kind of refine and be more efficient and be more successful in the future. All right, guys, that will wrap up today's video. Thank you so much if you are still here. I hope that you enjoyed today's video and that you enjoyed walking through 2024 with me. And of course, if getting into crochet business or a small business at markets is something that you're interested in, let me know in the comments below what key takeaways were most impactful for you and what you kind of learned if you do not yet dabble in the market world. The subscribe button if you haven't, so that you never miss a video. If you don't yet, follow me on Instagram. You can find me over there, Dilly Creations. Or if you're interested in buying one of these lovely flowers or any other plushie that you saw in today's video, you can always DM me on Etsy for a custom order. But that will be all. I will catch you in the next one, where we will be working on that very first pattern and diving right into 2025 goals. Alrighty, till then, stay silly, and I'll see you in the next one.